the mayor of Merchville. Let's welcome Ted Brennan.
They always have a reason why I go first.
Yeah, if he says anything bad, I'll bring you up again. Don't worry about it.
Thank you very much, Tim, and to PMAC, everybody here, for having me today. Tim, you're right. We have grown up together here. Pensacola and Merchville are connected, and literally, no one else here is going to call him Timmy, and no one else here is going to call me Teddy.
That's
but
right.
We grew up together, and it's great to have Tim, you involved in the fold here. I look forward to working with you, Mayor, and reliving our old soccer days together now in local government. One of the things that, I come every year, and for those of you who have been here and seen me talk before, I like to talk about what's going on in the borough. It's sometimes limited, and I got to tell you, the last year hasn't been the greatest year for me as the mayor in terms of economic development. We lost, some stores that we really wish that we still had. But those things happen, and we have to be resilient in how we move forward. So we talk a little bit about economic development and what the borough's doing. The major initiative that we've been talking about for a few years now has been a redevelopment in the downtown district. We're continuing to progress forward in that redevelopment. We've had some major concepts that have been presented to Borough Council, most recently over the summer months, where they're proposing somewhere in the neighborhood of 88 units in the downtown district in a mixed-use development that would bring another 16,000 square feet of retail into the downtown. It's good from a foot traffic perspective because it can help the businesses that are going to go in there, and it also will help clearly on a revenue side for the borough as we continue to try and limit the tax burden on our residents. But the biggest problem I think we've seen is over the years there's been a major change in the way that we consume and how we shop and how we live. And that has hit downtown districts significantly. Small districts like Merchantville, it's really hurt us because the operations that used to thrive in those areas are not thriving anymore. And what can we do? So we try and partner with our neighbors, with Pensacola and Cherry Hill and Camden to try and come up with ideas. We work with the state of New Jersey to work on some downtown initiatives to try and find and identify funding opportunities. We really, in the last year, Merchantville has made a concerted effort, and Mara should be the one talking because I'm talking all about what she does here. But we've really re-engaged with the Business and Professional Association in Merchantville to try and see what they need to be successful, how we might be able to assist them from an investment perspective. But ultimately, we are really trying to be as progressive as we can to provide opportunities so that it is cost effective for businesses to operate within the borough. So what we're working on, what Mara's working on, what our planning and land use board is working on at this moment is a series of economic development packages at the zoning level to try and make it a more streamlined process for people to come into our borough and operate as a business. And one of the major things that, those of you at my table may have heard Mara and I having this discussion is about parking in a downtown district and how it potentially hinders economic investment in your downtown. Because we have parking requirements and we require everybody a parking variance. And I personally feel I'm progressive and on that, and I say, what do we need parking variances? What do we need parking requirements for? The market, the size of the buildings will dictate who can be where and who can do what. But I'm not always right. I'm willing to listen to the feedback that I get, and we're studying that issue. We're studying other changes to our zoning code to make it easier for a business to come in and more turnkey to step into a space. So we are really looking at those things. I expect that we're going to have some of those initiatives completed within probably by the end of the second quarter into the third quarter this year so that we can try and get some investment during the spring and summer into some of our empty spaces. As I talked about before, we are engaging in redevelopment. We also identified a redevelopment area in the west end of town that we have. It's a little odd in its shape, but we're looking for ideas, and we're still looking at that mixed-use idea to create additional retail operations down there. We believe that it's a food desert down there. We'd love to have some sort of a restaurant, an established cafe type of restaurant down there. And Mara's working hard at this. The borough is working hard to implement policies that will support those activities. So the ultimate question is, how can you all help? Because it seems like we're trying to do a lot of things, and I don't know if anybody's trying to put a retail space in, but if you do, talk to Mara. Or Larry, or, you know, that's okay too. Or if Larry doesn't want to do it, you know.
Sorry.
Hold it off on Terry.
The borough is always open, and I'm sure Tim will say the same thing. We're open to anything. We aren't sitting there saying, no, we don't want this, no, we don't want that. So to the extent that you have relationships, that you have an interest in investing, that you might have individuals investing potentially in real estate or other operations, we're willing to listen. One of the reasons we brought Mara in about 2 years ago at this point was to do just that, make our process more sophisticated and more professional so that we could stand up and be more like Pennsauken, quite frankly. They have a very professional operation, have for a number of years. And we wanted to be more like that. We wanted to compete and provide opportunity and not just say no. And so to the extent that you have or want to invest in a downtown district, we're open. We're willing to discuss it, and we're open to new ideas because I think some of the old models aren't working anymore. We need to be open to ideas about what could fit in a small downtown district. So to the extent that any of you would like to do that, please, we're always open, always willing to discuss those things. One final thing, I'm not stealing Ken's thunder, but the census is incredibly important because it directly relates to the federal funding that you receive, that the borough receives, that the township receives, the county receives. That complete count is essential to knowing and making sure we get our fair share. So I would encourage you to come next month, understand how it impacts your businesses and your larger community, because there's a huge push coming from the county, coming from the country to make sure that everybody's counted. So thank you, as always, for having me today. I will now cede the floor to my good friend here, Tim Gillian.